The tick of a watch is a heartbeat, a steady, mechanical rhythm of purpose, or at least it's supposed to be. For the past 7 years, my life had moved to that rhythm, to the intricate dance of cogs and springs that I poured my soul into designing. But that rhythm came to a shuddering halt on a gray Tuesday morning in Manchester. My name is Leo Clarke. I was the lead designer at Pendleton Chrono, or I was, until Holly Kane summoned me to her glass-walled office overlooking the Irwell. "We need a fresh direction, Leo," she'd said, her voice as sterile as the minimalist tech she so admired. Across from her, a nervous man from Human Resources, whose name I couldn't be bothered to remember, stared intently at a spot on the table. "Someone who can integrate our brand into the modern connected lifestyle." I felt the words coming before she even spoke them. I'd seen the storm gathering for months, ever since Holly had been brought in as the new director of vision. She'd arrived from a high-end tech company in Cambridge, bringing with her a fierce disdain for anything that couldn't be synced to a phone. My designs, grounded in the classic principles of British horology, celebrated for their mechanical integrity and timeless style, were suddenly deemed nostalgic, not innovative enough. "Your work, while respected, doesn't align with the data-driven future we envision," Holly continued, pushing a folder across the polished white desk. Her fingernails were perfect, immaculate. They'd never known the satisfying grit of metal dust or the smell of lubricating oil. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral, a mask of calm I didn't feel. 7 years of my designs had dragged Pendleton back from the brink. The Lancaster series, my first major project, had become their signature line, praised for its reliability and understated elegance. The dual escapement movement that won the Grand Prix de Horlogerie de Genève 2 years ago, that was mine. None of it mattered now. I gave a short, polite thank you for the opportunity, gathered the tools of my trade, my sketch pads filled with gears and escapements, my well-worn calipers, and walked out of the building without a backwards glance. What Holly didn't know, and couldn't possibly understand, was that the designs she had been rejecting for the past year weren't just nostalgic whims. They were my secret portfolio, my belief in the future of mechanical timekeeping. Designs Pendleton had dismissed as too complex, too expensive to produce, or not in line with their new, smart luxury demographic. Designs I knew were revolutionary. Driving home through the drizzling rain, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Connor, a good man from the production floor. "They've just made the biggest mistake in their 100-year history." I learned my craft not in a sterile design school classroom, but in my grandfather's dusty workshop in York. He was a master clockmaker, a man who could coax life into brass and steel. He taught me that a timepiece wasn't an accessory. It was a legacy. "Every component must have a purpose, Leo," he'd say, his voice thick with a Yorkshire accent. "No wasted motion, no pointless decoration, just pure, honest function." That philosophy was my compass. When I joined Pendleton, they were a forgotten brand, their heritage lost beneath decades of poor management and uninspired quartz watches. I helped them find their heartbeat again. The old CEO, Mr. Mason, understood me. "Make watches that work beautifully first and look beautiful second," he'd instructed. "The people who truly appreciate time will understand." And they did. Our sales tripled in 4 years. Watch collectors and enthusiasts trusted the Pendleton name again because the products were honest. Then Mr. Mason retired. The board brought in a new CEO, a man named Harrison with eyes for the stock market, not the workshop. Harrison hired Holly to disrupt the brand. Suddenly, our design meetings were filled with jargon about user interfaces and app integration, not chronometric performance and material science. My meticulous drawings of new mechanical movements were pushed aside for renderings of sleek, black screens. The younger designers, kids fresh out of university with portfolios full of digital concepts, but no concept of a balanced spring, were given the major projects. 3 months ago, I presented my concepts for a new generation of automatic movements. One was a design that dramatically improved power reserve through a novel winding system. Holly had looked at the technical drawings with a blank expression and dismissed them as uncommercially viable. A week later, I watched from the back of the boardroom as she presented remarkably similar concepts to Harrison and the board, only now they were hybridized with a biometric sensor and a Bluetooth chip. They were credited to Julian, her recent hire from a wearable tech firm. That night, I called Finn, an old friend who had left Pendleton a few years back to become a materials specialist at the Hawthorne Watch Company, Pendleton's most respected rival. "How's your contract looking these days?" he'd asked after I told him what was happening. "No non-compete clause," I replied. "Mr. Mason thought they were unethical. He said if you treat people right, they won't want to leave. And if they do, you shouldn't hold them prisoner." Finn was quiet for a moment. Interesting. Very interesting. The redundancy package was generous enough, a statutory courtesy for 7 years of service. I signed the papers and drove home to my quiet flat in the northern quarter. It felt different. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of potential. I cleared my dining table and laid out the sketches Holly had rejected. There were 6 complete watch collections in total. Each one was a solution to a specific horological challenge designed for people who loved the art of timekeeping. The rain drummed a steady rhythm against the window pane as I looked them over. I had been designing for the old Pendleton, the one that valued craftsmanship. That company was gone. It was chasing fads instead of building a legacy. At 7 o'clock that evening, my phone rang. An unfamiliar Birmingham number. "Is this Leo Clarke?" a woman's voice asked, direct and without preamble. "This is Amelia Radford, Director of Horology at Hawthorne. Finn suggested I give you a call. He seems to think you're the real genius behind Pendleton's best years." I didn't say anything. I just listened. "Got anything you can show me?" she continued. "We're planning our next 5-year roadmap. Could use some fresh thinking." I looked down at my table, at the rejected drawings, the fruits of my nostalgic and uncommercially viable imagination. "I might have a few ideas," I said. "Good. Email them to me tonight. If they're half as good as Finn says, we should talk." After we hung up, I spent the next 3 hours refining the presentations for 6 of my designs, polishing the notes and clarifying the innovative mechanics behind each piece. At midnight, I sent the email. Then I went to bed and slept soundly for the first time in a year. The next morning, an email was waiting for me. It was from Amelia. My office. "10 and bring your thoughts on contract terms." I showered, but instead of my usual office attire, I put on a field jacket and a pair of sturdy boots. I drove down the M6 to Birmingham's Jewelry Quarter, a historic warren of brick buildings where true craftsmanship still lived. The receptionist at Hawthorne led me straight to Amelia's office. It wasn't a sleek, minimalist box like Holly's. It was a working space cluttered with books on horology, trays of components, and brass tools. Pinned to a large corkboard were printouts of all 6 of my designs. Amelia, a woman in her 50s with sharp, intelligent eyes, gestured towards the board. "These solve problems my team has been wrestling with for the last 2 seasons, she said simply. She tapped the centerpiece of my collection, a design featuring a unique, highly efficient automatic winding system. "Especially this one. How soon can you start?" For the first time since Holly Kane had walked into Pendleton Chrono, I smiled. A real, genuine smile. "I'm available immediately." She nodded once, a gesture of finality. "Good, because we're going to move on these. Very fast." A week into my new role at Hawthorne, I got a call from Connor, the production manager at Pendleton. We'd worked together for years, solving the practical puzzles of turning a 2D drawing into a 3D reality. "Leo, this is off the record," he said, his voice low. "But things here are a mess. Julian's designs look great in the renders, but they're a nightmare on the floor. The tolerances are impossible. The materials he specs don't behave the way he thinks they should." "That's not my problem anymore, Connor," I said, though a part of me, The part that still respected the Pendleton name felt a pang of regret. I know, mate, but it's what's happening now. Holly is telling Harrison you left the team without proper documentation. She's spinning this tale that you deliberately sabotaged the handover. That made me sit bolt upright. That's a lie. I know it is, but she's convincing. Harrison asked me if there was any truth to it. Your reputation is being dragged through the mud. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about moving on. Holly was trying to poison my name across the industry. Against my better judgment, I emailed Harrison, the CEO, requesting a brief meeting to clear the air. He agreed to coffee the next morning. The cafe was busy, which I thought would be neutral ground. Harrison arrived 10 minutes late, already glancing at his expensive and, ironically, Swiss-made watch. I'll be direct. Leo, I began. I've been told Holly is suggesting I left my projects in a state of disarray. That is categorically untrue. All my files are archived on the shared server, and I personally walked Julian through my entire process before I left. Harrison took a slow sip of his espresso, his expression unreadable. She did mention you might get defensive. Look, Leo, the watch industry is a small world. I would hate to see your professional standing damaged by any unpleasantness. The threat was as clear as a sapphire crystal case back. Stay quiet, or we'll make things difficult for you. I appreciate your concern for my standing, I said carefully, and I would hate to see Pendleton waste 6 months of production capital on designs that can't be manufactured effectively. His eyes narrowed. We will manage our production challenges internally. Thank you. I do trust you'll be discreet about company matters going forward. As he walked away, my phone buzzed with a text from Amelia. Contracts are signed and sealed. We want to move fast on your sovereign collection. I looked at Harrison's retreating back. He had no idea what was coming. 3 days later, a letter arrived by courier from Pendleton's legal department. It was a carefully worded piece of intimidation, talking about reviewing employment history regarding potential confidentiality concerns, implying I might have breached company policy. I showed it to Amelia. She read it once, then handed it straight to Hawthorne's legal counsel. Standard scare tactics, their lawyer told me that afternoon. They have nothing. The designs you're working on for us are entirely original, and you had no non-compete clause. They're just trying to rattle you. Should I respond? I asked. No, we will. That evening, Hawthorne's lawyer sent a short, devastating email to Pendleton's legal team. We have extensive documentation of Mr. Clarke's original designs submitted while at your company, complete with the dates they were presented and subsequently rejected. We would welcome the opportunity to compare those with your current product development timeline in a legal setting. 2 days passed in silence. Then Connor called again. What did you do? He asked, a note of awe in his voice. Holly just had a 2-hour meeting with legal and came out looking like she'd seen a ghost. I said nothing. Just watch your back, he warned. She's not the type to give up. A few days later, Finn invited me for a pint after work. We met at a pub in the Jewelry Quarter, a proper old place with history etched into the wood. You need to see this, he said, sliding his tablet across the sticky table. It was an internal marketing brief for Pendleton's autumn collection. Somehow, Finn had acquired it. I scrolled through the pages, and my heart went cold when I saw the mock-ups. They were my designs. The exact concepts Holly had rejected 6 months ago. Now they were called the Aura Collection, with Julian's name listed as the lead designer. They're planning to launch in September, Finn said quietly. Big marketing push. They've already placed the orders for the parts. The realization hit me like a physical blow. She didn't just reject my designs. She stole them. She fired me so she could claim them as her own. Finn nodded, reading my expression. Looks that way, but here's the other thing. He took the tablet and opened another file. It was an accelerated production schedule. Amelia convinced the board to move your collection up. She wants to have your watches on the market by August." I stared at him. "A month before Pendleton launches." "A month before," Finn confirmed, looking me straight in the eye. "With full and proper attribution to you as the designer. But you have to commit. Right now. Once she pushes that button, there's no going back." I didn't hesitate for a second. "Do it." That evening, I formally accepted Hawthorne's accelerated timeline. The contract included royalties on every watch sold and, crucially, full creative control over the final product. "We're calling it the Sovereign Collection," Amelia told me, "and we want your name and story to be a central part of the marketing." 2 days later, I was handing over my complete design files, not just concepts, but detailed production schematics, material specifications, and assembly guides. When I got home that night, there was an email from Holly in my personal inbox. "Leo, I hope you are well. I was reviewing some of our upcoming products and realized we might benefit from your expertise in a consulting capacity. Would you be open to a discussion?" I deleted it without a reply. For the next month, I practically lived at the Hawthorne facility. I worked 16-hour days, side by side with their production team. The lead engineer, a brilliant man named Ben, was initially skeptical. "These designs are revolutionary, Leo," he'd said, spreading my schematics on his workbench. "They're also bloody complex to build. If you want this done by August, I need you here every single day." "Whatever it takes," I told him, and I meant it. Unlike at Pendleton, I wasn't a designer handing down orders from an ivory tower. I was in the workshop, tweaking tolerances, solving problems with Ben and his team, earning their trust. Halfway through the process, I got another email, this time from Harrison himself. "We should discuss your current activities. It would be in the best interest of your professional future." Another threat. I forwarded it to Hawthorne's legal team and got back to work. In late July, the whispers began. Watch blogs and forums buzzed with speculation about Hawthorne's surprise collection. Retailers who saw the preview samples were placing huge orders. Then came the call from Connor. "Leo, did you?" He stopped. "Never mind. I shouldn't ask." "What's going on over there?" I asked, though I could guess. "Harrison saw the Hawthorne preview catalog," Connor said quietly. "He's in a blind panic. Holly is screaming that you stole concepts from us." I stayed silent. "The thing is," Connor continued, "we both know these aren't stolen from Pendleton's current work. They're your originals, the ones she rejected. It says so right there in the catalog. Designed by Leo Clarke. It's brilliant." The next day, Harrison himself called my mobile. I let it go to voicemail. His message was curt. "Leo, this is utterly unprofessional. We need to discuss this situation immediately." Instead, I drove to the final launch meeting at Hawthorne. In 2 weeks, the Sovereign Collection would be released to the world. The night before the launch, I hiked up to a vantage point in the Peak District, a place where I often went to clear my head. As the sun began to rise, casting a golden light over the rugged landscape, my phone buzzed. A text from Amelia. "It's live. Website just went up. First orders are flooding in." I stood on that ridge, watching the dawn break, a strange mix of triumph and sadness washing over me. I hadn't wanted this fight. I had given Pendleton 7 years of my life, but they had chosen style over substance, imitation over innovation. Now the market would deliver its verdict. The Sovereign Collection launched on August 12th. By lunchtime, Hawthorne's website had crashed from the sheer volume of traffic. 3 days later, a major industry magazine ran a feature comparing my Sovereign Collection to leaked images of Pendleton's upcoming Aura collection. The headline said it all, "A tale of two timelines, the curious case of two identical designs." The article was careful not to make direct accusations, but it laid out the facts, noting that I was the original designer of the concepts that Pendleton was now crediting to someone else. The forums exploded. Harrison called again, his voice tight with fury. "This is unacceptable. You have deliberately sabotaged our launch." "No," I replied calmly. "I designed a collection of watches for a company that hired me. The same collection you are attempting to sell under a false name. I believe the word for that is fraud." There was a long, strangled silence on the other end of the line. "You should have valued what you had, Mr. Harrison," I added quietly. "Good luck with your launch." The following week, Pendleton announced they were postponing the release of the Aura collection for additional refinement. Everyone knew it was a retreat. By October, the Sovereign collection had shattered every sales record in Hawthorne's history. My first royalty payment was more than my entire annual salary at Pendleton. Amelia promoted me to director of horology. 6 months later, I saw Holly at a trade show in Geneva. She was alone at a bar. "Congratulations, Leo," she said as I walked past, her voice flat. "You could have stayed and fought for your designs." I paused. "Some places aren't worth the fight." She flinched. "Harrison is stepping down. The board has asked me to take over in the interim." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Good luck," I said, and walked away. A few weeks after that, a package arrived at my office. It contained all my old sketchbooks from my time at Pendleton. Inside was a handwritten note from Connor. "These belong with you. Holly's gone. Thought you should know." I opened one of the books to a concept I'd drawn years ago, a new kind of modular case construction I'd never shown to anyone. That evening, I called Amelia. "I've got an idea for our next collection," I said. "In this industry, and in life, your work will always speak for itself, if you give it the chance." Holly tried to silence mine, but in doing so, she gave it the grandest stage imaginable. The best victory wasn't proving her wrong. It was finding a place that understood what my grandfather taught me all those years ago. That true, honest purpose has a rhythm all its own, and in the end, that is the only thing that endures.